welcome everybody. My name is Julia Marianska, and I'm here joined by Ashira Darwish. Thank you so much, Ashira, for joining us. I am one of the co-directors of the Village of Lovers and the co-founders of Reculture Media. And this is the first of a summit series. We have an upcoming summit, Fugitive Futures, and Ashira is our first speaker, which we're really honored coming in. Ashira is a Palestinian journalist and trauma healer, and she is going to be sharing with us her over 15 years experience as a TV and radio journalist and researcher for the BBC, Amnesty International, and Human Rights Watch. And she's also created a healing modality called Ashira Active Meditation, which we may experience some of this, and the practice offers relief and support for children and adults dealing with complex and continuous trauma, PTSD, ADHD, and it's rooted in Sufi, indigenous, and ancestral knowledge. And the practice consists of movement, dance, breathwork, EFT, Reiki, Kundalini exercises, and Sufi whirling. And perhaps you've also seen the beautiful and heartbreaking documentary Where Olive Trees Weep, made by friends and mentors of ours, Zaya and Mauricio Benazo. It's called Where Olive Trees Weep. And this is a documentary where Ashira was featured as depicting Palestinian lost trauma and the fight for justice over decades of life under Israeli occupation. So welcome today. It's an auspicious day. There was a ceasefire deal. And so we're in the wake of receiving that information, and here with the work we've been doing at Reculture Media, we're super devoted to truth-telling and seeking for alternative narratives that can bridge toward a regenerative culture and healing culture. So Ashira, I wanted to open it to you and welcome you, and just if you want to, one more thing, I wanted to acknowledge, we're on the stolen indigenous lands of the Homo and Coast Miwok here where I'm based in Northern California, known as Sebastopol. And it feels necessary to acknowledge that in the perpetuated cycles of genocide that we are experiencing. So just take a few minutes of silence for that, and then we're going to open it and welcome Ashira. Welcome, Ashira.
Hi, Assalamu alaikum. Salam لقلوبكم الطيبة. Peace to you and your kind hearts. I'm excited to be here. And as Julia said, the ceasefire deal has not been signed. It's the last moments, and it has been really hard to sleep. And it feels like we're there. I'm going between motions of between going into tears and then excitement, and then holding the excitement and stopping it. It's a combination of emotions that I haven't felt in all my life, because I'm talking to my friends. So some friends in Gaza are like, inshallah, very excited, and then there's some friends who don't want the war to end because they want to die. They were hoping that they will die so that they can join the rest of their families, and those who have lost all of their families want nothing to do with being alive or being on this earth, and they just hope that the war will continue so that they can be with their loved ones. And there's friends who are here, whose families are there, who are terrified because they say that maybe we can get happy now, but then Israel will cheat again and they will do something and they will break the ceasefire. So I come to you with all of that today as we wait for the announcement. Inshallah, it will come through, and inshallah, the ceasefire will hold and it will be the beginning of the liberation of Palestine. We hope that we hope that what we have seen also does not mean that everything that has happened to Gaza and this genocide will not be the end of the resistance and the fighting for a free and liberated Palestine, and the end of the Israeli Zionist regime. So, with that,
Yeah,
I'm
thank
here.
you. It felt really necessary and appropriate to begin our summit with this conversation, Ashira, because what we're seeing is happening in Palestine and Israel is in a bit of a microcosm of a macrocosm of systems of oppression. And while what's happening is horrendous, it's unforgivable. We can look specifically at what's happening there, and we can also draw parallels to what's been happening. And I know that you really devoted yourself for 15 years to this work of journalism. And I wanted to open up for you to share your story of what led you to this path. What made you feel like this is the path you want to take in your activism and your how to give your gifts, your energy for journalism? What happened for you?
I was arrested when I was 16, and that was the reason I stopped wanting to do music. So the reason isn't uh, very much that I was always wanted to be a journalist. No, I wanted to be a musician and a singer. And when I was arrested, there were so many cameras taking pictures of me, and I was wondering like, why doesn't any of the journalists pick me up? And why don't they stop it? Because they're there and they're present. And I wanted to be that kind of journalist that's able to support and help people. And I studied journalism, and I, you're taught in school that you have to be always balanced and that you cannot take sides, and you're also taught the ethics that the journalist is the one who brings the information to the people so that the people can move, and it's the one that holds the authorities and the governments in under check. But after years of practicing journalism, I realized that none of the things that I studied in school or the books or the texts made any sense. All the media organizations that I worked with and saw are controlled by the governments, by the authorities, by the machine, by the industry. Every media outlet is controlled by people who want their own interests, and it's all about money, and it has nothing to do with truth. And more we see independent media coming out and finding these niche spaces for journalists to actually do what journalism is supposed to do, to hold people accountable, to hold authorities accountable. But we've seen the role in the genocide of media. All of the stories that came about October 7th, the immediate response was the media gearing up and allowing for this genocide. The media was responsible, is responsible for this genocide. They played an active role in enabling the genocide to happen and putting wrong information, taking the IDF statements and pushing them about rape, about all of this information. And now a year later, we find that all of it is not true. And Palestinians who said this from the beginning, that this could not possibly be true, were rejected, were journalists were kicked out of their networks if you said anything against the IDF statements. And the media control is it took us a year to debunk the Israeli IDF narrative and to show that none of the stories happened. And it's unbelievable how much control and authority they have, and the way everything is reported, that Palestinians normally claim that 500,000 people were killed in this genocide, whereas Israeli IDF says, and the language that they use and the way they look at us, the media has been a tool of dehumanization of the Palestinians. And I thought that I can break through being in the BBC, trying to do that work, working as a fixer for so many different outlets, American, international. I thought that when they see us, something will change. But the reality of it was that at every stop, there was somebody in control. The editors were always in control to change the narrative, change the words that we use, and change the story in order to make us sound, the Palestinian narrative always sounds weaker, and it always empowers the Israelis. And from that's where I decided, actually, I had a TV online show, Sleepless in Gaza and Jerusalem, and it was a reality show. And it just showed our lives, 7 Palestinian women from all over, from Gaza, from the West Bank, Jerusalem. And it just showed people how our lives are without anyone editing, in a sense, without without somebody coming and telling you this is how life is. You just see it. You're in our house, you're eating with us, you're eating with our families, you're going to our parties, you're seeing the theater, you're seeing the plays, you're seeing the soldiers, you're seeing the attacks, you're seeing everything for your eye. And I started to hoping and believing that at least with social media, there's an opening for us to do more and to show the truth. And we've seen it with this genocide, that it was the social media that, despite all of Meta's efforts, of course, we have to say that Meta has been blocking us. I've been shadow banned, everybody that says anything about Palestine. But still, there was a window for us to at least share and show some of the images and what is happening um, in Gaza. And then I also moved to human rights because I was like, hey, okay, so this is not the place. Media's controlled. Let me try human rights organizations. Supposedly, they're the best in the world, and the world listens to what Human Rights Watch and Amnesty says. And I was there every day trying to prove that children were getting killed for no reason, that children were being killed in their backs. I had to be in refrigerators carrying the bodies and searching the bodies of children 16, 14, 15 to take out the bullets to prove that they were shot in the back. I would make the reports, send them to Amnesty and everywhere, and nothing would change. And for you to understand how these organizations work, also the human rights organizations, if you report on China, I remember how easy it was to talk about the report about genocide came out against the Muslims, and I was saying, like, we've been trying to get the report about apartheid for something like 20 years in this organization. And we have to prove every time there's a committee for the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. And then there's another committee. And on top of that committee, you will have Israelis in the committee. And we had to be scrutinized every single time for anything that we report that has to do with Palestine, where in other countries, it was okay. And I saw the same ceiling or blocking for us also in these human rights organizations. When it came to reporting on Palestinian Authority crimes, I was also targeted by the Palestinian Authority. I was targeted by the police. I was beaten, arrested. My life was threatened. My family's life was threatened by the Palestinian Authority for exposing extrajudicial killings. And eventually we had to kill reports because we weren't able to release them. So there's so many layers in trying to report on Palestine and to show what is happening. And it's a whole system that operates. And now in the US, I look at how the media here works, and it has nothing to do with reality as well. It's all owned, the whole country. I'm like slowly really realizing that the US, this whole capitalist entity, actually there's nothing that operates here for the people who live in it, except for a very small rich entity. And neither the police nor the government nor anything functions to help support the people.
Mhm.
It all works for the companies, for the big pharma, for all these. They poison, the water is poisoned, the food is poisoned, and the media nobody seems to cover the stories that hurt the people. But there's so much light shed on areas where just about the politics and the superficial level.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think media has to change. And the last thing I told Amnesty before I had to leave was that by the time that we finished the apartheid report, we have to start investigating genocide. And they were laughing. They were like, yeah, no, it's not going to take us this long. And here we are today. Amnesty is having to research crimes of genocide, and it's going to take, I don't know how long, for any accountability to happen in this world. So it's the elite that control, it's the rich people that control, and everything in their interest. And our battle is to try to find ways to let the information out through independent media, through independent organizations.
Yeah, yeah, this makes so much sense. And in a way, I feel that's,
In there.
oops, I lost my pin. Maybe Abby, you can pin me while I'm speaking. So Ashira, yeah, the media which is controlling everything. This is also, it's not just a genocide, it's a war on information. It's hard for people to be able to believe or know and stick by facts, or even when there's the question and the wish to support, where do we send our funds? Where do we send our resources? It's hard to know what happens inside of the matrix of these organizations. And so it's actually really relieving to have voice from somebody on the ground like yourself, who is like intricately involved, and heartbreaking to hear about the stories about the refrigerator and the bullets and the accounting. And I cannot even imagine the effects on your own body, your own nervous system, to have to live this way, to be born into a system this way. And I'm compelled to explore the concept of resistance. It's in the title of this talk. And it's, you know, we can say maybe from outside, oh, we need peace work, right? We need negotiations. And this on what we were talking about at the beginning of this talk, without truth, we cannot have trust. And without the trust, we cannot lead to peace. And so if we're just, if we're at this very basis of what's true, and we're reckoning with these systems and these powers that feel insurmountable, there is now a reality for so many on the ground where, and what we see with you know, just the simple act, for example, of Palestinian youth throwing a rock, right? It's like, this is like the very basis of what I can do just to resist the oppressor. Um, I wanted to read a quote actually from a fellow journalist, Zeli Imani, an organizer and journalist. He wrote, "For the oppressed, peace is the absence of oppression, but for the oppressor, peace is the absence of resistance." And I'm curious if you can speak to this idea of resistance. How do you understand it? How do you live it? What does it mean to you? This concept of resistance.
I think that's a wonderful quote, and it is exactly that. Oslo taught us what peace is. We were the Palestinians signed an accord, Arafat, against all of the what the Palestinian people wanted, and gave away 70% of our land in order to achieve peace. And we see what peace has brought us. We see the genocide. Israel used peace as a ploy in order to silence the intifada, to silence the resistance, in order to take over more land. And peace still is used as this ploy. We don't want peace. What we want is justice. What we want is an end of the apartheid system. What we want to see is an end of the Israeli entity as a Zionist state. So many Israelis talk about peace, and I tell them, if you want to talk about peace while you're still living on my land, there's no concept of peace. I want justice. And what I want for justice, that means you get out of my land first, and you get out of you no longer support the Zionist entity that is currently killing, wiping out entire bloodlines in Gaza and in the West Bank. And then we can talk about a situation where life can return into coexistence. You cannot talk about coexistence and peace and all of this stuff when we are still under the boot, when we are still being crucified, when we are still being killed day by day. And the idea of this notion of peace to us, for the Palestinians, it's very similar to what happened, like, not similar, but there's you can see it, I think, in the analogy of what I told you when you said land recognition. For me, when white people stand and on native land and they say, "Oh, we recognize this land to be for this tribe and this tribe," when I first arrived here, and I was like, "What are they doing?" And people explained this to me, and I was like, and I went and I saw my the native tribe where I actually got. That was the first place where I felt at home in the U.S. And I told them, guys, like, how do you feel about this? Like, this is crazy. They come and they say the names. Yani, I can't even imagine to have somebody stand in Abid Darwish, in the old city of Jerusalem, and to say, we acknowledge that this is Abid Darwish and that the Palestinian family of Darwish used to live here upon a time, and we acknowledge their land. Don't acknowledge my land. Give me back my land. And this is what the natives told me, that this is what makes white people feel a little bit better about what they have done. And it is masking. It's just masking the problem until today. They still live in reservations. they still are treated unequally. They work a whole system of government was created, which is against everything that has to do with the native nations. They are led internally also by a group that operates under the command of the United States. There has been zero justice in the US for the natives, and the only justice that can be seen, that can come from recognition, can come from acknowledgement not of the land that was ripped away, acknowledgement of the massacres, acknowledgement of the rape, acknowledgement of the schools, acknowledgement of what has been done, and returning people to their land, giving back people autonomy over their land, giving them a voice to control how this land is run, so that fires will not burn through the United States, so that thousands of people are not killed by the floods that will come to the US. That for the earth itself, if there is no recognition of what has been done to the land and fixing what has been done in the sense of returning to the knowledge of the ancestors and the natives, to allow them to take care and be in charge of the land will keep puking out the new systems. And we've seen this happen. And I think also in Palestine, people don't understand that when you drop bombs on the heart chakra, the voice chakra, the throat chakra of the earth, which is the Dead Sea area of Palestine, there will be repercussions on the land itself, and not only our little bit of land, but on this earth that we all share together. Energetically, you can't escape from what you do. And this is the lesson also of karma. Things come back. So this notion of peace, which just covers and masks the reality of what has been done, doesn't help anybody. They, the Americans feel that. I know that the majority of Americans don't feel this. So when I say white and Hada, I'm talking about the specific machine supporting people. Um, so the majority of people think not that don't believe that the African American struggle and civil rights and justice exist. The African American community remains enslaved. How many black and brown bodies are inside prisons in the US right now? How many operate? How it's legal to take people out of prison, enslave them, and let them work, but not let them out on parole in this country. And if we look at the example of the US, then you can understand also what is happening in Israel, and why the US is the main ally for Israel, why the bombs dropping on our children are coming from the tax dollars of the US. Crimes that are being perpetrated here are crimes that are being perpetrated there. The culprits are the same, and justice hasn't been served, neither here, neither there. And for anything to happen, it has to be a state where both countries, both, not only both, the whole world acknowledges what has been done. The colonialists need to acknowledge what they have done to the earth so that we can move to the next stage. And for this end of the world as it is to happen, so that we can have a state of living in harmony with the earth, in harmony with the land, without these borders that they've created, which some people decide to draw upon our lands. Um, so in my mind, peace and justice is when we all live in harmony. And it doesn't mean only in Palestine, it means around the world. When children are not taken, native children are not taken from their families in Sweden, in Denmark, in places where we don't even recognize that there is a problem of colonization, and that the actual original people of the earth there were also displaced, changed, and Europeans went through this. The whole earth has gone through stages, and to dismantle the system that operates us and now is trying to create us into robots, so that we are better in control, I think, because we've been resisting so much the machine, that now they're like, okay, let's change the humans, let's like redefine them, let's put chips in them, let's make them all live on virtual reality so we can control them more. And this is the new move. This is what the instrument wants to do. And on the other side, you see the battle of the light, which is people regenerating the land, people acknowledging that there has to be changes, shifts, and resistance. Resistance is that. Resistance at the heart of it is the liberation of people and the liberation of the land. And the resistance that we grew up with, it's not an option. As a Palestinian, people tell me like, you're an activist. I'm like, Ya Rabbi, ya reetni. I never was an activist. I never had to act a day in my life or go to prison or be tortured in order for things to change. I wish I was born in a world which I can be free. And for my children, the only thing that I have to do is to continue this resistance, because I don't want them to live in an earth that continues to be a jail for all of the people on it. And for us, the resistance for the Palestinians, it's just survival. When the soldiers come to your neighborhood, if you don't throw the rocks on the soldiers, then they will come and sit in front of your house and ask you every time you go in and out of your house where you're going. If you don't ask and hit rocks at them, they will come inside your neighborhood and they will take over. The settlers will move freely into your area. Resistance is the only way to stop somebody who comes violently against you. We can be peaceful in ourselves internally, that we want peace, we want justice, we want to live in a land which there is justice.
Mm.
But when you are faced with violence,
Yeah.
and with people whose innate belief is to erase you, an erasure, what kind of the whole idea of putting flowers in the guns, and this doesn't work with Israelis. I protested nonviolently all my life, and sadly people have watched the people of Gaza. I think this is the best example on earth of how the Palestinians tried to do nonviolent resistance. Palestinians in Gaza marched to the wall, to the fence, to go back to their land, which they were kicked out of. And it was the great march of return. Children, women, medics, journalists were shot. They weren't carrying RPGs, they weren't carrying weapons, they weren't going into settlements, they were just marching and asking for their right to get out of the prison, which has been under blockade, without air, water. The water in Gaza has been sewage. People have been, even the sea is sewage. They have 6 meters only that they're allowed to fish in and they're allowed to use. And it's the same place because of the lack of electricity that we dump our sewage. We swim, eat, drink sewage for 15 years. And it was okay. People did not move around the world. And when we protested peacefully and went to the wall and they killed hundreds of people and they maimed people, it was fine. The moment the Palestinians tried to break free from the cage and use whatever means that they had possible to get out, we became the evil terrorists, the death machines who are horribly trying to go and kill the people on the other side who've been watching us being shot day and night, who have been eating and sucking our water from under us, who've been imprisoning our children, who've been sexually harassing and raping our women, not since this war, since the 60s. And if you don't know about the stories of rape, you need to read the stories of Rasmiya Ode. Our history goes back to 1948 and what they have done to our land and what they have been doing to us for years and centuries. The way that we resist is the only way to exist for us, because they will take over. And we see it in the West Bank, the villages where there is no resistance, the settlers come in and wipe people. With all eyes on Gaza now, when the ceasefire comes down, you will get to see what's been done to Jerusalem, what's been done to the West Bank, how many peoples have fled, how many villages were completely ethnically cleansed. My whole ride from my house from Jericho to Ramallah, all of the villages were wiped. There's not one Palestinian left in them since October 7th. They've taken everything. And at this point, when we say for us to say, wallahi, we want we want peace. لا يا عمي, we don't want peace. We want justice for what has been done. This genocide, if anything, has made us believe more in resistance and believe that our right to resist is our innate breathwork right. This is the right that the Americans, the Europeans have been banning and denying us day after day, teaching us, coming into our schools and teaching me democracy. And I bought it. I bought the nonviolence that they were teaching me. I bought it and it went on my body. because we believed what the white people said, and we believed in human rights, we believed in the ICC, we believed in this, and word. Nobody came to us, nobody came to the rescue when we had to scrape little bits and pieces of children 2, 3 days old from the walls. Where was this world that believes in justice, liberty, peace, and human rights in the last year? It's
Yeah.
the same. It's the hypocrisy. The masks have come off. Those who skinned the natives are the ones dropping bombs in Palestine. Those who enslaved people, raped African American women are the same people who are perpetrating the attacks. The people who are poisoning water in the US and poisoning their own children with the food, with the sugar, are the same people. The instrument is the same, coming after all of us, and they've been operating for centuries. And resistance is the only way that we can come back to a place where the earth will have some sanity, the earth will have some, will be able to breathe.
Mhm. Right now, you are a woman speaking for so many women, for so many people. Like your voice is really channeling so much of what's wrong and what's tarnished, what's been ruined. And thank you for your truth. It's deep truth you're speaking. Whew. It's a lot, hey? It's a lot to live. It's a lot to hold. I feel your power, feel your fortitude, and thank you for coming and sharing it because it needs to be heard, it needs to be known, and it's difficult if anybody's feeling activation in their body, just reminding you to breathe and to feel yourself where you are. Probably you are safe where you are if you can be on a Zoom call listening to this. And it's for us as a humanity to hold it together because this is we are, it's like you say in the film, and it's such an important motto. None of us are free until all of us are free. We are bound together in our liberation. We are not separate from. And it's, in the film, the Where Olive Trees Weep, there's a number of topics where I want to name some. One is the recognition, right? Like the Holocaust and the trauma of the Jewish people, and that what that did to a people when they were seeking safety, and the irony of that trauma repeating itself as some mechanism of protection, and just that alone, and that trauma repeating itself is somehow in the DNA of that project. And I know that you went from shifting your work from journalism into trauma healing. And in the film, you also talk about, and with Gabor Mate, who's a renowned author, also healer, speaking about how when you're in this situation, when every day you are facing the oppression, the unsafety, and the violence, it's actually not possible to heal. And so they talk about in the film how PTSD is not actually a relevant term for people on the ground in Gaza or West Bank or Palestine because it's not post and it's not a disorder, they say. It's actually current and it's ongoing. And you spoke about how, like, actually removing yourself from the scene, removing oneself from the plane where the violence and the perpetration is happening is part of what creates the possibility for the healing. And we know this is impossible for so many who are living it. And it's one question I have is, how do we conceive of what the future generations of all these children will be dealing with when they have witnessed so much that their young eyes and hearts should not have witnessed? I know that part of your work is working with children. And I want to name one piece. I'm naming a lot of pieces here, but just one more, which I was so touched by. You spoke in the film also. If you haven't seen Where Olive Trees Weep, please go look it up. There is a moment you say you went to work with the children of Gaza, and you were letting them move their energy, and then you asked them, what do you want to do now? And they started the clapping and the chanting of an indigenous Bedouin dance that they knew, that they unified in, and just that there was like a breathing component to the dance, And what's remarkable is that there is a technology in indigenous knowledge, right? It's like, ooh, how do we move energy? How do we heal? Because
Mm.
our practices are coming from being connected to the earth and to each other. And it's something I want to give space for you to speak about that work and returning to that indigenous knowledge as it's being taken, as it's being severed, and like how do we reclaim, how do you make space for reclaiming that, and what brought you into that trauma healing work transitioning from journalism? Would love to make space for that.
So I moved into trauma because of my trauma. After working with Amnesty and all these different organizations, and I was injured in 2012, and I was paralyzed. I was lynched by an Israeli soldier in the village of Nabi Saleh, and it was my healing, my journey through healing from the physical paralysis to going back into movement. And then I realized that healing my mind is going to be so much harder than healing my body. And I wanted to share that because the Western modality, of course, when it came to my physical trauma, was that, oh, your spine is 70% severed, there's no way that you can ever walk again, and that there's nothing they can do to me except rehabilitate me and put me in a wheelchair. And I, thankfully for the resistance and the mentality of resistance, I was like, I don't accept this, thank you, I will go and search elsewhere. And I went into the indigenous knowledge that comes from my ancestors, and alhamdulillah also from asking for the divine support. And alhamdulillah I was able to go back to walking, and I wanted to share because I afterwards I was like, we have all of these tools, we have such amazing tools, they come within us, within us, within us. And we have wonderful keys, just as trauma transfers genetically, and when you're in your grandmother's womb you get the trauma, you also get the codes for resistance and resilience within you, because your ancestors want to share with you. So I used those tools, and I was like, everybody has that. We all have it. We have the ability to heal physically. We have the ability to heal mentally. And why are we doing these like colonialist modalities of talk therapy? These things that don't belong to us. We sing, we chant, we dance, we move. And for 5 years, I was going to the protests every single Friday and getting shot, tear gassed with my community. And I didn't have the same PTSD as people talked about, or any of these things, because after every protest we would come together and we would check each other's womb. If you were hit with the skunk truck, the whole community comes and offers different ways to clean you, wash you, what do you do, and sometimes offer to cut your hair. We would sit together and we would look at each other, see who's wounded, who's hurt, and then we would cook together communally. Everybody would cook together, and then we would eat together, and then we would dance dabke and dahiyya. Sometimes when we were very destroyed and broken, I remember one time we were shot and beaten, and it was really hard. I had broken part of my foot, and I didn't want to stop, so I broke four of it so that I don't stop protesting. And we were sitting in the car and like bruised up, and we just we didn't want to feel defeated. So we would just sing. Even though they beat us, even though they hit us, even though they broke us down, we will still keep marching, and we are still happy, and we are still laughing, and we would do it in a very funny way, like لسه فرحانين ولسه مبسوطين, in very childish ways, to sing that we are still happy and we will keep laughing. And this is the sumud, which is a word that you don't have anything in English to come to it, but it's resilience that's built in. Uh, History will record for the people of North Gaza what Sumud is. Those people who did not move because they're refugees, mainly in the north of Gaza. These are all refugees. Their grandmother instilled within their DNA that you die rather than move when they push you to move. Because if you move, you will become a refugee forever. And you stay in your land, starvation, whatever happens, eat grass, eat whatever, but do not leave your land. We have codes within us that keep us surviving. People think that the Israelis think that if they cut the food, we won't be able to eat. We eat khubeze. We eat grass that here in the US I see people walking by it and stomping on it, and I'm like, oh my god, you're stomping on like iron, guys. This is like magic. We eat this. This is gold. If you eat this, this is what Jesus was fasting on for 40 days. And this is how your body like regenerates. And it's a superfood, but here it's grass. we have ways, we have the indigenous knowledge, we have songs, we have rhythms. When I came also and sat with the natives, they welcomed me in a song, and I immediately felt home. And they sang the song for prisons, and I sang the song of prisons. And in prison we sing and we chant and we stay, we hold on. Our voice, you know, in Islam, it's the word. It's the word. The vibration is the most important thing, and it has all the magic within it. And through vibration we can remove everything. Halla, I'm thinking about the moment we will sit with the destruction. I've met with kids in Qatar because we're going to do research on the brain of children to show how much degeneration has happened to the brains just from trauma of this genocide. And also we're going to do somatic work, which comes from us, the dihiyya, the dancing, the storytelling, the making of our food, and being submerged with olive oil from our land. And we will heal together, and we will see how this will change the way that the brains work, and we will fix the damage. We don't give up. One thing about natives and indigenous is we do not give up, because we don't have that luxury to give up. And we need to continue staying on our land and protecting it, because we came here to protect. We came here to make sure that this earth does not get taken by these people. And this is our one birth duty. And we inherit it and we give it. And we find ways to find resilience and sumud, and to keep going. And I'm aware that we don't have too much time, so I will also guide you so that you can hear a little bit of our what gives us the power to keep going, and what gives us the power. Our faith, of course, is one thing. To say Alhamdulillah, when I talk to most of the people, everybody's in how do you call it, prostration, I think, in English.
Yeah, yeah.
So everybody I know is on the floor, and the first thing we do is we release everything from our third eye into the earth, and we prostrate and we thank the divine for letting us survive and reach this moment where we can celebrate now the liberation, inshallah, very soon, of our thousands upon thousands of hostages, that they're going to come home to their families. And it's that the feeling also to make sure that one thing the Israelis will try to do, and they did in the second intifada, is to try to defeat the people. And if you for 1 minute instill defeat in the hearts of people, it will take them centuries before they rise again.
Mm-hmm.
And now our battle is to ensure that this moment of celebration is, despite everything, is still a celebration, so that we know that this is how we continue to move on this earth,
Mm-hmm.
and we continue with a higher energy than all the fear mongering that they have put in us.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna ask you guys if you are ready to move a little bit and to shake off some of the hard things that I shared with you.
Yes. And we have some time now for your guiding us, and then we're going to have time for questions. So stay with us. This is a moment to experience some of being guided by Ashira, and we have until 12:30, so 45 more minutes total. So I'm going to remove my spotlight, and Ashira, I give it to you to share. You can share your screen or music or whatever you need.
Okay. Hopefully I can share my music. We will do the dahiyya, which is the one that we spoke of. And one way that this works is, you're gonna get up. If you can't get up, if it's very uncomfortable, I don't know how you're gonna shake in your seat, but I think it's good to shake. Um, and you're just gonna let your body move. Your feet don't move off the earth if you're barefoot. Well, please be barefoot. Why would you be in your house with shoes when you have the chance to let go of some of the energy and give it to the earth? So if you can be barefoot, and we're shaking, and most important is the hips. This is the house of trauma. This is where everything gets stuck. So shaking it off with the music. And then when I say freeze, I just want you to be able to wait. Let me fix the music. When I say freeze, if you can go into uh, a complete freeze where you don't move anything, and you just allow for your breath to settle. Sorry. Let me know if you can hear this. Can you hear this?
I can hear it. Yeah, we can hear it.
Perfect. We're gonna start from here.
احرق يا ابراهيم احرق الليل بطلت تهرق احرق الليل يا ودد الليل بحرقها احراقي بكلاشن ولا بالماقي الليلة احرقها احراقي كلاشن ولا بالماقي يما الغمازة تعالي نتصل يما الغمازة تعالي والغمازة عخديدة يعشقني وانا بريدة أما الغمازة عخديدة يعشقني وانا بريدة
Take a deep breath and just breathe as you are. No movement. Just the breath is the only thing moving. And now go back into the shaking and you can move your feet with it as well.
يا ولد خذ لك فلاحة وتاكل عيشة المرتاحة يا ولد فلاحة وتاكل نفس مرتاحة خذ
Where did that come from? Sorry.
Big ideas.
What? Sorry.
وتاكل نفس مرتاحة خذ بداوية وفلاحة خذ الفلاحة وتهنى اطلب عليها وتمنى خذ الفلاحة وتهنى اطلب عليها وتمنى هلا شي صالح يا ضمين عيني الخير بثنتيني يا صالح يا ضمين عيني الخير بثنتيني خذ الفلاحة وتهنى أما الكفار محنى
And freeze. The only thing moving is your breath. Now you can allow yourself to move as your body wishes to move with the music.
الله الله على البحر مبنية واحنا شبابك فلسطين لا ما نرضى الذلية الله الله لا ما نرضى الذلية وين عرب
deep breath in and freeze.
Thank you, Ashira. Wow.
Now you can take a seat.
Mm.
My mother is calling me. That's what usually when my mom calls, that means something happened.
There's a ceasefire.
Yeah, but I think like the first thought for me was like that means I can come home, but I know that it's gonna be more.
Mm.
But yeah, I'm assuming that she's gonna be like, "Khalas, the war's over. Yalla, pack everything, come home." All
So
right, I'm just gonna guide you also on one thing, just so that our nervous system is not left hanging. If you can just pull your ears, and it's just stretching the ears, all sides. And you're pulling, pulling, pulling. And now if you can, you put your hands on your forehead and you swipe behind your ears all the way down your neck, around and into the heart. And you're going to take a very deep breath and do this again. And release. Now just rub your hands together and cover your eyes and your third eye. And if you can breathe in 7 breaths in, 11 breaths out, counting yourself 7 in, 11 out. The outer breath is longer than the in breath, and you do that for 3 times. And then when you're ready, open your eyes. And come back.
thank you. Yeah, thank you for the range of bringing the truth, like the real hard, real truth, and
It
also
just happened, guys.
what? What happened?
They signed.
Wow.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, let's take a moment with that. Like to think about that deal being signed as we were all dancing for this liberation moment. May it be, may it stay. Thank you for guiding us in that.
I do hope you get to go home because you just helped me come home. You got to be careful when you ask an old man's belly to start moving.
Oh Hey, Ashir, are you up for a little dialogue if people
Yeah.
want to ask? Yeah?
Happy
Okay.
dialogue.
Amazing. So maybe do people know how to use the raise hand function on Zoom? Or you can do like this and it can do it for you, I think. Do people know that? So you can oh now how do I get mine off? Anyway. Okay, so Janine has a question.
Oh, it's not a question. I just wanted to thank Ashira. Can you hear me? Okay. Uh, that dance, I laughed and I cried and I danced like crazy, and the music, of course, was just sacred fucking good. And it was an amazing experience. And then to have you share that at the end of this, it feels like a perfect moment. So thank you for bringing our bodies into this with you, and I believe in the dance, and so I'm so happy that you did that with us. And I am praying for this to be real and a ceasefire to mean something for you that none of us can even imagine. And again, I'm just happy to be with you today, and thank you so much for sharing yourself.
Thank you. Thanks, Janine. Hala.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ashira and Julia, for this amazing meeting. And I have a question for Ashira, of course, but anybody else. How can we help? I mean, I know that the ceasefire is like the absolute bottom, minimum required, assuming it lasts and it's actually real. Can you maybe give us some ideas for actions? How can we be part of this liberation, global liberation, and especially in Palestine?
Yeah. So this is the bottom. As you said, this is the least thing that that we need right now, but we need it so that we can count the dead, and also for people in Gaza to breathe at least. And what needs to happen now is that we need to keep movement. So inshallah, this will revamp and re-energize everyone, and get us back into action and get us back into movement. Right before I got into this call, I was talking to an activist, abolitionist activist, and I was telling her we should immediately, like the moment the ceasefire kind of takes hold, it's important that Palestinians also, we get into the movement and we move for other people, and to immediately go into working here for abolition, to work against the prison system, and to see how we can continue to be in movement, because in movement we are also always healing, and stagnation is where death happens. It's where everything stays. There's lots of things that we need to do. There's also, for us trauma therapists, now is when the trauma actually rises. When there's quietness is when people will have to see what happened, because most of the people don't even know. We've been in a state of freeze for a year, and now we can open our eyes and actually see how many people we lost and count the dead and figure out the numbers and figure out where do we go from here. And the end goal is liberation. Liberation comes in stages, and I think what Gaza did is wake up the entire universe to the injustice, not only on us but on the whole planet, and they can't undo what happened. And I think Israel committed suicide with the genocide for the state of Israel, because something as horrid as that authority and that regime will not continue to exist. So we're going to see more breaking down of the system, and hopefully more rising around the world for the activists who are active with us to wake up and be like, okay, so we help them now. How do we liberate ourselves? Because we're occupied physically, but alhamdulillah, we're liberated mentally, and we're liberated from the chains of capitalism. We're liberated from so many things because of of being under occupation. And I hope that this will wake up people in their countries to see what chains they are under and start knocking on the gates of prison.
You liberated all of us.
Thank you. Yeah. Does anybody else want to chime in? Could be with a comment, a question, something you want to say about what you experienced in this session. Open for that. Yeah. Wow.
I've unmuted. I'm sorry, I don't know how to press that button. Can you hear me?
Are you Ethel?
I am Ethel.
Okay.
I'd just like to really thank you. Yeah. And the work continues. The work continues. So let's not forget to reach out and to maintain a sense of connection with each other, where we can realize what connection really means. It's not just around fighting for things to stop. It's around placing ourselves in the service of each other. And I really thank you for bringing home what you have, and may it find root and expression in our living, day to day, moment to moment. For as long as it takes, may we be in the service of life and love. And may I not forget that what's happening to me is not the only thing that's happening. I really loved in the film when you were singing, when you had and you were swirling. And I just thought, may that circle of sound ever widen. Because when I hear it, it helps me to touch in to what brings life to life. So from my heart, I really thank you.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Ethel. Yeah. Beautiful. Wow. Yeah. Wow, Ashira, I cannot imagine how you're feeling now with this news coming in. I'm sure you want to call your family and everybody.
Yeah, that's I want to look at the news. I sent a message to people here in Richmond. I'm like, where are the Palestinians? I want to be around Palestinians right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to see other activists and see people, so that's.
Yeah, I'm so curious in the next day what groups will gather and marches and celebrations, because everybody's watching. We are, for all of what you said about media and journalism, there is something, despite the meta and all the ones trying to force us down, there are voices piercing through. There are, people on Instagram and TikTok and whatever else that are taking the risk to share what's happening right on the ground. And it's amazing how we can become both able to see directly, and it's work not to become desensitized to it. We have to stay awake that this is real, this is happening. It's not just another thing on our social media scroll. It's something to pay attention to. I'm also so grateful that we could have you here today. There's no censorship on this talk. We just hear the cold, hard facts of your lived experience. And for everyone that came, that to stay, all of you who are still here, to stay with it, right? To stay through the arc of whatever was coming up in you somatically and hearing about those stories, and then going through the movement and to show why, right? Like even in 10 minutes, what it can do for the body to regenerate. If we do these practices, if we do these movements, if we do this breath work. And for me, also seeing some of you on the screen, the joy of communion with others, right? There's something like just such a simple and indigenous to almost every culture. Even if you're white, you come from someplace. There's some of my favorite teachers and peers are doing this really incredible work right now, Tending the Bones, it's called, and it's about reconnecting to your indigenous lineage. Where did you come from? What did your people do to reconnect themselves, to reconnect to God, to reconnect to the body and spirit? And we all have this capacity, and we don't need to take each other's cultures. We can reconnect to where we come from. So thank you for bringing your culture and your music. Thank you. And if there's no other questions or comments, then I'll just say thank you. And this is, like I said, the first of a summit series called Fugitive Futures, and Abby can put a link in our chat. Just January 29th through February 2nd, we have a 5-day summit that we're curating. It's going to be 3 speakers in the mornings, 15-minute butterfly talks midday, and then workshop series in the afternoons. We have an incredible lineup. This is a culmination, my partners and I, 10 years of deep culture work and weaving with people who are mythologists and healers and authors and storytellers and people on the front lines and fringes of culture, indigenous grandmothers who are bringing knowledge that we need. We need to get together in spaces and figure out, how are we doing this life? How are we healing cultural narratives that that dominant systems want to suppress or control? So check it out and join us there. Shira, you're wonderful. Thank you for your power, your passion, your truth. I know you're a mama. You've got two little ones. I'm sure they are needing you. And
take them to celebrate now.
yeah. So bless your life. Thank you for joining us. And if there's anything you want us to share in the chat about your work or your links or anything, you can.
I can share my website also if you want to support, see what is going on, and share information.
Yeah. Yeah, and this has been a recorded session. I'll send out the recording now for all the ones who registered and didn't come live. And you'll be free to share this. If you have a friend, send them the link. Have them hear this story. And may we all unite in the healing and the liberation. Yeah.
I'm shadow banned on Instagram, so do follow and share with your friends.
Amazing.
All right, bless you. Thank you so much for having us, and thank you for organizing.
Yes. Thank you.
Blessing to be with you today.
Thank you both.